United Kingdom has drawn a clear and deliberate line in the sand as tensions continue to escalate across the Middle East, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer making it unmistakably clear that Britain will not be pulled into a widening war involving Iran. At a time when global pressure is mounting, alliances are being tested, and military calculations are shifting rapidly, his remarks represent one of the most definitive policy positions taken by a major Western leader since the conflict began. Speaking with unusual directness, Starmer signaled both frustration and resolve, making it evident that his government has faced intense lobbying to take a more aggressive stance. Yet, despite these pressures, he chose to publicly reaffirm his position in terms that leave little room for ambiguity. My position on the Iran war has been clear from the start. We're not going to get dragged into this war. It is not our war. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This declaration comes at a moment when expectations were growing that Britain might align more closely with the United States in a broader military posture against Iran. However, Starmer's words suggest a deliberate recalibration of Britain's strategic priorities, one that prioritizes national interest over alliance pressure and caution over escalation. Behind the scenes, the pressure on London has been significant. According to Starmer himself, attempts were made to persuade him to alter course, particularly following recent developments that appeared to push the region closer to open confrontation. Yet he remained unmoved. A lot of pressure has been applied to me to take a different course. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to yield. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Such language reflects not only political determination, but also a recognition of the potential consequences of deeper military involvement. For Britain, entering the conflict would mean entanglement in a volatile regional war with global implications, something the current leadership appears keen to avoid. He went further to frame the decision in terms of national interest, emphasizing that restraint is not weakness, but strategy. It is not in our national interest to join this war, and we will not do so. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This stance aligns with a broader European hesitation to escalate militarily, even as tensions continue to rise. Across the continent, governments are increasingly wary of being drawn into a conflict that could spiral beyond control, particularly given the already fragile state of global stability. At the heart of the crisis lies a fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran, an agreement that, while offering a temporary pause in direct hostilities, has failed to bring comprehensive calm to the region. The ceasefire, brokered through diplomatic channels involving regional actors, was initially seen as a breakthrough. However, it quickly became clear that the situation remains deeply unstable. One of the primary reasons for this instability is the continuation of hostilities on parallel fronts, particularly in Lebanon. Israeli strikes targeting Hezbollah positions have persisted even after the ceasefire announcement. These actions have not only undermined confidence in the truce, but have also drawn criticism from international leaders. Starmer himself did not shy away from addressing this issue directly. Israel was wrong to carry out deadly strikes in Lebanon after the ceasefire announcement. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This statement is notable for its candor. Western leaders have traditionally been cautious in publicly criticizing Israeli military actions, especially during periods of active conflict. Starmer's willingness to do so suggests a growing recognition that continued escalation, regardless of the actor, poses a threat to broader stability. The situation in Lebanon has become one of the most volatile aspects of the wider conflict. Israeli operations against Hezbollah have resulted in significant casualties and widespread displacement. Entire communities have been affected, with infrastructure damage compounding an already severe humanitarian crisis. The scale of the disruption has drawn international concern, with many warning that Lebanon risks becoming a central battleground in a much larger regional war. At the same time, the economic consequences of the conflict are being felt far beyond the Middle East. One of the most immediate impacts has been on global energy markets. Oil prices, which initially dipped following the ceasefire announcement, have since resumed their volatility. This fluctuation is driven by uncertainty about the durability of the ceasefire, about Iran's next moves, and about the security of critical shipping routes. For countries like the United Kingdom, these fluctuations have direct consequences. Rising energy prices translate into higher costs for households, placing additional strain on already pressured economies. Starmer has expressed clear frustration with this dynamic, pointing to the link between geopolitical instability and domestic economic hardship. A central point of concern in this regard is the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. A significant portion of global oil supply passes through this narrow channel, making it a critical choke point. Any disruption to shipping in the strait has immediate and far-reaching consequences for global markets. Recognizing this, Starmer emphasized the need to keep the route open and free from interference. There must be no tolls or restrictions on navigation through the vital shipping lane. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This issue has become a focal point of diplomatic discussions, with multiple countries working to ensure that maritime traffic can continue uninterrupted. The stakes are high. Even a temporary blockage could trigger a surge in oil prices, disrupt supply chains, and exacerbate economic instability worldwide. In an effort to address these challenges, Starmer traveled to Qatar, where he engaged in high-level discussions with regional leaders. The Gulf states, given their proximity to Iran and their reliance on stable shipping routes, have a direct interest in the outcome of the conflict. Their involvement is therefore seen as essential to any lasting solution. During these discussions, Starmer highlighted the importance of including regional actors in the peace process. These Gulf states are the neighbors of Iran. If the ceasefire is to hold, it has to involve them. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This perspective reflects a broader understanding that external powers alone cannot resolve the crisis. Sustainable peace requires the participation and cooperation of those most directly affected. While diplomatic efforts continue, the crisis has also exposed deep divisions within the transatlantic alliance. NATO, long regarded as a cornerstone of Western security, is facing renewed scrutiny. Differences in approach, particularly between the United States and its European allies, have become increasingly apparent. Starmer, for his part, has sought to defend the alliance while acknowledging the need for evolution. NATO is a defensive alliance which for decades has kept us much safer than we would otherwise have been. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. At the same time, he has called for a stronger European role within the alliance. Do I think there should be a stronger European element to NATO? Yes. Keir Starmer. These remarks come against the backdrop of criticism from Donald Trump, who has repeatedly questioned NATO's value and urged allies to take on greater responsibility. Trump's comments have added another layer of complexity to an already strained relationship, raising questions about the future direction of the alliance. Beyond the realm of high-level diplomacy and military strategy, the conflict is also being felt on the streets of Europe. Public anger has erupted in multiple cities, with large-scale protests taking place in countries such as Greece, Italy, and the Netherlands. Demonstrators have expressed opposition to continued military action and solidarity with civilians affected by the conflict. These protests highlight a growing disconnect between government policy and public sentiment. While leaders navigate the complexities of international relations, many citizens are focused on the human cost of the conflict, on the lives lost, the communities displaced, and the long-term consequences of continued violence. The humanitarian situation, particularly in Lebanon, is becoming increasingly dire. Large numbers of people have been forced to flee their homes, seeking safety in an environment where security remains uncertain. Access to basic services is limited, and the strain on resources is intensifying. This human dimension of the conflict serves as a stark reminder of what is at stake. Beyond the geopolitical calculations and economic considerations, there are real lives being affected, families disrupted, futures uncertain. Against this backdrop, Starmer issued a warning that resonates far beyond the immediate crisis. This conflict is going to define us for a generation. We must respond with strength. Keir Starmer. The choice of words is significant. To describe a conflict as defining for a generation is to acknowledge its potential to reshape not only regional dynamics, but also the global order. It suggests that the decisions being made today will have consequences that extend well into the future. As the situation continues to evolve, the world finds itself at a critical juncture. The ceasefire, while offering a glimmer of hope, remains fragile. Military actions continue in various forms. Diplomatic efforts are ongoing and alliances are being tested. The United Kingdom's position, however, remains clear. It will not be drawn into a war it does not consider its own. This stance reflects a broader strategy, one that seeks to balance engagement with restraint, to support stability without contributing to escalation. Yet even as Britain avoids direct military involvement, it remains deeply engaged on the diplomatic front. its role in discussions, its influence within alliances, and its economic interests all ensure that it cannot remain entirely detached from the unfolding events. The coming weeks and months will be crucial. Whether the ceasefire can be strengthened, whether diplomatic efforts can yield lasting results, and whether the broader conflict can be contained, these are questions that will shape the trajectory of the crisis. What is certain is that the stakes are high. The outcome of this conflict will not only determine the future of the Middle East, but will also have profound implications for global stability, economic security, and international relations. In this environment, decisions must be made carefully with an awareness of both immediate consequences and long-term impacts. The balance between action and restraint, between alliance and independence, between pressure and principle, these are the challenges that leaders like Keir Starmer must navigate. And as the world watches, the choices made today will echo far into the future.